Welcome to episode number 35 of Hoop Talk Fanatics. I am here with my co-host Chris Cohen, and we'll be covering a ton of topics from the Phil Knight Invitational to Battle for Atlantis, Villanova struggling, dominant two teams in the East, UConn and Purdue, and we will preview tonight's spotlight matchups and Chris's thoughts on Kansas and Penn State. So welcome back.
Let's go. It's gonna be a fun one.
Yeah. So let's first dive into the Phil Knight Invitational and the Battle for Atlantis.
Sweet. Give me 1 second. I want to pull the. But I mean, those were the Phil Knight Invitational was both of them were great. I don't know which one's named what because they have two tournaments now. But the main one that my focus was on, that yours was too, was I think the actual one that's called the Invitational,
Mhm.
with Villanova and them, and that was a fun tournament.
Yeah,
Those were 8 really good teams.
yeah.
And I think people learned pretty quickly that Portland was right
Mhm.
on their level with some of those teams in that tournament, and they were tough out for anybody, and they got Nova. And then the tough one, I didn't get to watch that game against Michigan State, but that was right down the wire. They had a chance there. So like
Yeah.
eight really good basketball teams. And that's what I love about these tournaments. You learn a lot about where you're at as a team
Mhm.
because it's all about getting prepared for March Madness, and these tournaments are as close as you get to replicating those games. Not playing back to like 3 straight days in March Madness, so it helps that case. But these tournament neutral site courts really gives you a good look at where you're at. And I think in the Phil Night, we learned a lot about a couple teams. Mainly, I think you got to give credit to UConn. They 3 really good games. They won big in all their games. Like I think that's different. I mean, that is the difference between they played really well and like these other teams. North Carolina had a lot of close games, and they lost Iowa State. Iowa State was playing close ones. Villanova had close ones. Like all these other games were pretty 50-50, I felt like, for the most part, who could win. But in UConn's game, they really controlled each of them from the get go. And it's just some great play from them. I think a big part of that is, I mean, I would need to look at the stats more in depth, but no go, he's one of the best bigs in the country for UConn. Really helps step that up. But they've had their depth pieces have kind of impressed me a little bit. I don't want to get the names wrong, but because they lost a couple guys from last year's team that were really impactful for them. And I was a little bit worried that they won't be able to necessarily replicate their success. But I mean, they're the main storyline from this week. Do you have on hand what the rankings for this week? How high did UConn jump? You know,
I haven't looked at it
they
yet.
went up a lot. I think they're definitely top 10. I could take a peek in a second. Like, but also I talked about Sonogo, like he's the star. But like against Iowa State, they won in a different way. So he only had 4 points, and just a lot of different guys in double figures. Four guys in double figures, and just they brought in some transfers and like just some good depth on this UConn team for me. And I don't know, what are your thoughts on them as a potential threat to win the Big East? Maybe.
Uh, yeah, I think the Huskies of UConn are a really big threat in the Big East. Um, I don't think there's any other team than UConn at this moment that is the most consistent team. But I'm not sure what will happen in the next couple of days and weeks. But I think UConn has the chance to do some damage in the Big East Conference. And what do you think about the conference as of now?
As about as you touched on, UConn's been a class, but Creighton's also been very good.
Mhm.
They've lost one game, and I believe it was that against with Arizona. I believe they played because it was Maui. Yeah, in that championship game in Maui, they lost. a tough one. I think it was very close. I don't know the score here, but yeah, Creighton's really good. And the Big East as a whole always has really good depth, and I
Mhm.
think that's something that's going to stand true this year. Villanova struggled in the non-conference, but I mean, St. John's is still undefeated, not necessarily tested the same. Providence has been competitive. Marquette,
Mhm.
a couple of teams, Butler and Seton Hall, have struggled a little bit, and Xavier struggled a little bit more than I expected. But I think still decent teams. And the Paul's impressed me a little bit. They've lost a couple games, maybe they could have won, but overall, 1 through 10 a great 1 through 11 a great conference, one of the best top to bottom. And I still think Villanova is going to turn it around and at least be competitive
Mhm.
somewhat in this conference. But they have a lot to improve on if they want to get close to UConn grades level. But I think they can really be in that middle of the pack at least. So I think the depth of the conference will look a lot better. Like the next couple weeks, conference games start to play. We'll start to see these teams get more of a rhythm, and I think it's going to be a typical Big East, even with even without Villanova at the top. You have a couple elite ones, I think.
Actually, I'm looking at St. John's. There's next three games, and the one that sticks out to me is Sunday, December 4th against 23 ranked Iowa State, which will be an interesting game to see if uh, the the Johnnies can go 8-0 and
That's a
stick with
That'll
UConn.
be a great test. That's a great test for them. They also have a game tonight. Just I think just a little bit here, but just a small team. But Iowa State's a good test for them. They beat a couple decent teams. I mean, Syracuse is a nice typical Syracuse team, but they beat them. They beat Temple. So
Marquette,
they played a couple okay teams, but good test.
Marquette plays tonight also.
Marquette does as well. Nice.
Yeah,
They got oh I believe they host Baylor, don't they? I think a little bit down. That's gonna be a good test for Marquette.
yeah,
How does that? Can they get that atmosphere going? Good home game, like
yeah.
against a really good Baylor team. Like
Hmm.
we'll learn a lot about Marquette tonight. I think.
What do you think about the Flyers of Providence?
I haven't been able to sit down and watch them as much, but I've listened couple things about them. Well, they have a big game tomorrow, I believe,
Yeah, at
against
TCU.
TCU, which is tough. Um, but I mean,
Their schedule is pretty light.
they've looked okay this season. Um, I see they lost to St. Louis by just 3, and they lost against Miami. So like those aren't bad losses by any means, but those are really the only two great good teams on their schedule, and they've lost both. So I mean, they got a chance for a couple more. TCU's kind of struggled a little bit to start the season, so they're vulnerable. So that's a game Providence can get that would really kind of bolster their resume and give them some confidence as they start to prepare for conference play. So I think that's a big one for them.
I'm actually looking at
But I mean, they got
their schedule, and the biggest test that is coming up for them is, I would say, maybe before UConn on January 4th. I would say either Seton Hall or Marquette could give them some trouble.
yeah, those conference games are going to be tough. Every conference game in the Big East is going to be tough.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I want to look at. I don't know. I assume yeah, TC is starting to get healthy a little bit. They have players back from suspension too, so I don't. I don't think they're going to get TCU on the road, but I mean, a chance to play a good team on the road is always a nice test in a non-conference.
Mhm. So so next up, let's talk about how Villanova is uh in a struggling um time of their season, and what are your thoughts on the rest of the season and how it will play out?
I'm pretty concerned about how they played. I don't like they just haven't been. They don't seem to be meshing well. A lot of times you see these guys stepping up, but and with Villanova, but I mean it's not Jay Wright coaching anymore, so it's a huge adjustment for everybody in the program, and it just hasn't looked good so far. I was giving them the benefit of the doubt earlier because they lost at Temple, and we were talking after that. I mean, they've lost to good teams. Like I know Oregon's lost a few, like Portland lost a few games. Like they've lost to five teams that out there good, good basketball teams. But I would say they haven't beaten
Mhm.
any of those good teams, and that's not something you're used to with Villanova. So it
Yeah,
is worrisome. And just the way they looked in some of them was kind of sloppy, and I just didn't seem to have a great flow.
mhm.
And I think Dixon's been really good. We talked about him a lot. He's impressed. Definitely one of the better bigs in the Big East. But outside of him, I don't think they've had a lot of consistency. And he's had a game or two where he's been off a little bit too. But he's for the most part he's been there. Caleb Daniels been decent. Like Slater's playing a few games, but overall I feel like they haven't been consistent enough on offense, and the defense hasn't been great. I mean, it's not terrible every night, but they just haven't been able to find ways to win games. And they've been in these games though. Like I see, they lost to Michigan State by two, Iowa State by two, and then they lost to Portland by double digits, and Oregon by a little bit by about 7 or 8. But they've had chances to win these games, and they haven't been able to do so. And they have a few upperclassmen on team, and you'd like to see them find a way to win these close ones. But I mean, they got a test. They got a good Oklahoma team. They got a few tough games coming up. Like they're gonna have to bring it. Like if they don't play well, they could lose the next couple games pretty easily. Like they aren't great teams, but Oklahoma's decent. Penn's decent. I don't know much about Boston College, but these are three games, a few games that Villanova really needs to get their rhythm back before heading into conference play. I think because if they
I think
really continue this slump, they'll be in some trouble.
I think this upcoming game against Oklahoma is going to come down to Villanova's defense. I think if they can stop the majority of big plays Oklahoma can run, I think that will be a big factor for them. And if that goes well for them, I think Villanova has the edge of winning. But but I just feel like Villanova doesn't have that chemistry yet with the absence of Justin Moore and Cam Whitmore. And it just it it looked out of whack, and it's not looking like their season. But there's still time to turn things over. But as of now, I don't see this team as a tournament team.
I don't either. Still a long way to go. Yeah, plenty of chances for good wins, but they need to start getting it fixed soon, or they're gonna be in some trouble.
I don't think they're going to slide into the top 25 this year, the rest of the season.
Yeah,
But they could still be a 500 team.
they
But
could
but it will depend on how well the offense runs itself and defense.
for sure.
Yeah,
But they need some wins now though. If they want to make NCAA tournament, they're gonna be in some big trouble. I don't see them because if they lose a couple more in non-conference, that puts them in a spot where they got to win three quarters or at least 2/3 of the Big East games, and that's a tough task. That means they got to win a lot of road games.
I'm glad that I got to experience a good run by them last year.
That's true. That was a fun team.
Plus, plus,
They had a fun run because
plus, not every year
I got to
you
watch a couple of the games.
plus not every year you get to experience a big run, which happened last year. But it's just the way sports is,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
and
you just gotta enjoy those moments.
yeah. So moving on to your team, Kansas. I know that you've been watching them in person, and what are your thoughts on the Jayhawks?
Yeah, speaking about enjoying runs when you have them. K won a title last year, so let's make sure keep that in mind. But they've been they've been shaky in a lot of ways. Some injuries. I mean, Self without the first 4 games. And the offense is really going to struggle for a lot of the season. They just don't have a lot of scores,
Mhm.
but the defense should be one of the best defensive teams in the country. They do have a couple flaws on that end. Big thing, we don't have a traditional big man, which Self has always had. It took him a while to even transition from not playing two bigs at a time together, but now at the point where we really have none. KJ Adams has been filling that role, playing hard, making plays, but there's only so much he can do at 6'7", whatever he is. A little bit shorter. The guards, I mean, Dewan Harris does so much for this team, but Pettiford's out a few more weeks. MJ Rice working his way back in now, so it's just gonna be interesting to see how Kansas can kind of mix this in. They have a decent test against Seton Hall on Thursday, which will be a fun one. But it's just they just got to keep walking and getting better. Jalen Wilson's been one of the best players in the country, and I expect that to continue. We're going to need more scoring outside of him on a consistent basis to be a great team. Um, I mean, last year's team was really inconsistent for most of the season until March, and they got hot. So you can never count this team out because they have talent, they have good pieces, and all about matchups at the end of the day and then good tournament. But over the course of the regular season, there's a couple teams in the Big 12 who can really challenge them at the top and who a lot of people feel are probably better than Kansas. So it's going to be interesting to see how that conference goes. Those play in about a month, but some really some really good players on the Kansas team. I mean, they've only lost 1 game. Like Tennessee is just a tough matchup. They're more physical. They're bigger than us. And Dewan Harris was in foul trouble, which hurt. But I mean, we've won a lot of close games, which you can look at it. A lot of negatives from those games. Like you shouldn't have been in close games with all of them, but finding ways to win tough games, close games is going to be something this team has to do when you're playing tough defense and not like lighting up the scoreboard on offense. I'm interested to see how that goes. And yeah, just Self's got some time for conference play. He's really gonna work on his rotation and probably I'll be interested to see how that lines up in a couple of weeks when it's really situated together.
Mhm. I I really like how the Jayhawks offense is going. Uh, in the past couple of games, I feel like the chemistry is there, and it's a well coached offensive team, and they're going to be a big factor come the Big 12 conference tournament. And what do you think about the next couple of games they have? And do you think that uh, the offense is going to be a big factor for them?
Yeah, I mean they got a couple fun games coming up. I mentioned Seton Hall, Missouri, Indiana. Like they don't have really easy game, and then Harvard. Like they got a few tough ones coming up before conference play. So we're
Mhm.
going to learn a lot about this team and a couple games they could easily lose. So meant to see how they find like they battle. But they got Seton Hall Thursday, and then they got a week off before Missouri, and then Indiana and Harvard, and then we get rolling in the conference play. But definitely interested to see how they play because a lot of these teams have different styles. Some really good players on these teams that they're going to face, and it's all about can they defend consistently for 40 minutes and
Mhm.
can they can kind of control the game on you. They've made a lot of mistakes. They're great defensively, but they capitalize, get a lot of points off turnovers, but they're still making some mistakes, not being super small with the ball at times. But overall, the chemistry is great, as you mentioned, and like guys are fitting together, cutting lanes was there, alley oops, like a lot of different things are working for them. So they'll only get better as time goes. So I'm not concerned on that end. It's gonna be a work in progress until they really get clicking. But these next couple games are gonna be really good test for them before we head into conference play. So I'm excited for them.
So we're going to move on to our good friend John Berardi's team, the Purdue Boilermakers. They've been a big surprise to the college basketball family. And what are your thoughts on Zach Edey and how he's developing into a great player uh, this season, and Mason Gillis and their offense?
Yeah, so Edie is special. One of the best bigs in the country, one of the best players in the country as a whole. Starts with him, but I mean the depth, like the guys have stepped up around him. Fletcher Loyal's been nice. You mentioned Gillis. Like Braden Smith. Like a lot of new pieces on this team. But and yeah, we've talked in preseason about it to John a lot. But like Purdue's really surprised us in a lot of way. Like because I was questioning whether they'd be a tournament team even, which looking back was kind of dumb considering how good Edie is. But like this team is they were really good. They have a chance to compete in the Big Ten because I don't see the Big Ten really like they have a lot of really good teams, but do they have that like elite title contender? I'm still not sure they do, but maybe Purdue can be that. But they've been very impressive and some really good wins.
Mhm.
They beat Duke and Gonzaga bad,
Yeah.
and like both those teams have had some flaws. I will say to start the season, they had not been great either of those two.
Mhm.
Zagas really struggled on the defensive end. But either way, beating those teams like they did is super impressive, and you have to give a lot of credit to them for that.
I'm just looking at Purdue's schedule, and they have Florida State tomorrow in the ACC Big Ten Challenge,
It's
and
gonna
then
be good.
their next game is not until Sunday at home against Minnesota.
Okay, it's not too bad. I mean, Florida State's gonna be a good test. Florida State is, I will say, playing in Tallahassee's a test. Florida State has been bad this season.
Mhm.
Like, and they've been really disappointing. So
They've
maybe it
been
won't be that difficult playing. They are 1-7, but
sorry to
still,
interrupt.
no, go ahead.
Uh, Florida State has been on the same page as Louisville.
They've been bad.
Yeah.
Those two play in a couple weeks, so we'll see that matchup. Louisville still hasn't won a game, have they?
Uh, they are still winless.
So bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, they might be a while without a win too. So, but yeah, Florida State. I mean, Purdue's got a chance to win a lot of games in a row before. I mean, conference games are always tough, but the rest of their December schedule is pretty favorable. The only road games at Nebraska,
Mhm.
and they're going to be heavy favorites in every game they play. So very interesting to see if they can keep this undefeated streak going for a while.
The one is gonna probably end up just like the Philadelphia Eagles.
They may. Yeah, but then when they get to January, they have a lot of tough road games. So it won't last too long, but they could keep this streak going into the new year.
Mhm. So we got a couple more things to touch on. So we will preview tonight's two big matchups, Clemson, Penn State, and Virginia, Michigan. What are your thoughts on these two matchups?
Um, I think I like Penn State's chances. Clemson hasn't impressed me to start the season. I haven't watched Penn State as much, for granted, but I assume you have. Clemson just doesn't have. They've got good production from a couple guys, Hunter, Tyson, Galloway. Like a lot of their role players from last year, not role players necessarily, but their guys from last year have kind of stepped up a little bit more this year, which is encouraging. But I think this is a big game for both teams because I feel like both are maybe tournament teams. I might
Mhm.
be a little bit discredited and say they were good, but like maybe tournament teams and like seeing how they compete, match up with each other now, like these wins will go a long ways down the road. Like one win may not seem like much, but like if Penn State can win this one and like another game or two here or there, that's against a team like this on the road that they're not favored in, like those wins add up a lot, and it's definitely a winnable game for them. And I think it's gonna be a good basketball game. I'll be tuned in for sure to at least part of it, and I'm interested to see how. I think a couple different styles of play maybe between these teams. I think that Clemson to really try and slow it down maybe, but think Penn State. I think Penn State has the talent advantage, and I think they'll win that one.
So
And then
what are your thoughts on how Virginia has been playing?
Virginia is really good. I was high on them in the preseason, and they've even been better than I thought they would be. Like they're one of the best teams in the country right now. They're great both ends of the floor. They have a lot of guys who can score. I mean, make shots. Like they're not gonna run you out the gym offensively or anything, but it's Virginia basketball for you. And the last couple years, they're kind of not necessarily all the way there, but there's some really good pieces now, and I think they have a chance to be one of the best teams in the country and win the ATC. And
Mhm.
I think they'll win tonight. Michigan has been okay because they only lost to one game, but they got blown out against Arizona State. So, and I think Virginia is going to be able to really defend Michigan well. I don't think they'll have enough on Dickinson to score consistently tonight, but definitely interested to see how much Michigan can kind of hang on. Road games are always
Mhm.
tough to predict. So, but I think UVA will get that one done.
I'm just looking at UB's Virginia's schedule. They play Michigan tonight, and then Florida State at home, and then James Madison at home. So their next test would be against Houston
Houston is going to be a great game.
on December.
That December 17th has a lot of great basketball games. I don't know if you've looked at the schedule yet. We'll have to do a podcast episode just for that day. There's like 8 great top 25 games.
Yeah.
Crazy to take a look at it eventually, but yeah, that's these might be the two best teams in the country right now, Houston and Virginia. So I can't wait for that game. It's still a few weeks
And
away.
and to start off the new year, Virginia has to play North Carolina on January 10th.
That'll be a great one as well. It's in Virginia, so I'm interested. North Carolina's disappointed me a little bit. Because they just I thought they were overrated coming in at number one preseason, and they just haven't. They don't play great team ball. They're talented for sure, but they're not super deep, and at times they're a little careless. And I saw a stat they have the same amount of assists to turnovers as a team, which isn't ideal. Then just they got to work on some stuff chemistry wise, but obviously coming off that national title appearance last year, they had a pretty good chance to win that game. You bring a lot of guys back. Just continue to build on that. I mean, it's November. They'll be fine when it matters, but they just got to continue to work on their offensive chemistry. I think, and a lot of stuff that they do, but they'll be.
One last thing we have to cover, which is Thursday's big matchup, Creighton against Texas. That's that's going to be a big game for a lot of reasons. And what are your thoughts on that matchup?
That is going to be a fun game. That's the first thing I'm going to say. These are two of the best. Creighton had that loss, which whatever they lost in tough. They lost the thriller in Maui. Creighton's been one of the best couple teams in the country.
Mhm.
These are two of the best teams in the country. The two of the teams playing the best. They score the ball really well. They shoot the ball well, and they shoot the ball well for the most part. Texas has guys who are a little bit. Carr and Hunter have shot the ball better. I think maybe not statistically. They've had better moments. Like that game, they're fantastic. I think Hunter's shot the ball really well overall. That backcourt is probably the best in the country, if I had to
Mhm.
say. Maine has got a lot of good pieces. There's going to be a lot of talent in this game, and a lot of guys who can make plays, just impact the game in a lot of ways. So I'm very, very curious to see how this game ends up, and I'm definitely excited to watch as much of that as I can.
I'm interested to see how Cockburn plays against Texas's defense.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how they match up with him. Chris Beard, they did a good job on Timmy. They obviously way different players, but just like big men and whatnot. But that'll be interesting to see how they defend that. Because I think Creighton has better guard and wing play than Gonzaga does at this point in the season. So they won't be able to necessarily just sell out on Kelkbrenner. But I think Texas have the athletes and guys to really get after you defensively. So this will be a fantastic matchup.
Mhm. It's definitely going to be an interesting week, which tips off tonight, and we will see how it goes. And excited to get back on for another episode to recap the games with you, Chris.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to it.